This was a pretty big bet they made in Kansas City, Missouri. Walk us through a little bit about this complex, what it was called, what the goal, the vision was, Eliot.
So it's this large 8-block entertainment center filled with bars and nightclubs. It's called the Power and Light District, and it's on the edge of Kansas City's downtown. And what the city did is, in the early 2000s, they found a private developer willing to put a lot of money to revitalize the downtown. I mean, there it was literally just like barren parking lots. Right. And so they also, at the same time, had a few other things going. They put in an arena, and they also put in H&R Block, moved its headquarters down there. So they had this kind of entertainment district in the middle, and they said, all right, we as the city, we're going to put some money toward this, or guarantee some future money for this, but we think it's low risk, it won't hit the city. You
say guarantee some future money for it. Now, there was a creative financing deal they did for this, which actually seemed like a sure bet. Kind of in simple terms, walk us through that.
Right, so the way they did it is simply, it was advertised as it's going to pay for itself. So all of the future sales tax that this area generates and property tax, we're going to put that toward paying off debt. And so, great, seems easy enough, right? Because a new district generates more tax than an old one. So what happened is, when revenues didn't come in like they thought when that whole recession happened, the city had to start paying money to pay back the debt.
They called the city.
Yeah. Right. Because the city guaranteed it, and that's actually rather rare. Usually the city doesn't back it.
And I would guess, as with many municipalities around the country, the worst possible time for them to come calling to the city. They were probably cutting in all sorts of other places.
Right, so it started opening in 08, 09, and that's when the tab started mounting, and the city has had some strained budgets. They had cuts back then, and now revenue hasn't been growing as fast as they hoped, and Fitch, the rating agency, has warned of a potential downgrade because of high debt levels, this included.
And this arena they built, they have not yet been able to find a professional sports team to come into that arena.
Right, the Sprint Center.
What are the lessons? I mean, I assume this isn't isolated to just what's happening in Kansas City. This must be happening in many pockets around the country, Eliot.
Right, it takes a few different forms. I mean, not always this kind of financing called tax increment financing, right. But either way, cities, what we've seen a ton of is private developers making ambitious bets, and then they, went sour and their investors take a hit. On cities, this happens in a different form, and Kansas City is a good example of that. And either, through putting money in infrastructure where you think you're going to get some giant project with 6,000 units of housing and then it didn't come forward, or through something like this where you're literally paying out of pocket. Cities have been hit by the real estate bust just because they, in the same way that developers did, got kind of caught up in this exuberant wave and said, like, we're going to put a ton of money toward this.
And now they just have to sort of cross their fingers and wait and try and ride it out and hope things turn soon.
Yeah, and it's not, in Kansas City, no one expects it to come back. I mean, the projections were just, unless the economy really just, picks up steam.